Though with the government slowly easing lockdown, will gigs ever be the same? We're going to discuss it in this podcast. Please subscribe, hit the notifications bell, leave us a comment and enjoy. So Sam, you're going to host this podcast. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So, bit of an update from us, really. Of course, the ongoing pandemic is still happening, the coronavirus pandemic, taken many lives, unfortunately, and there are many people recovering as well, thankfully. So, what we want to look into, really, is to see if gigging will ever be the same after we come out of this. Because at the moment, we're on a partial lockdown now. No, lockdown rules have been eased a little bit on certain areas. Certain places can open, certain people are going back to work now. But we just want to see if we can get gigging again soon. So let's just look at the coronavirus update really at the moment. So I'll share my screen with you guys. So back on the Worldometers, my most reliable source of coronavirus cases. So at the moment, as you can see, as of today's date, which is the 17th of the 5th, there are currently 4,772,646 coronavirus cases with 315,187 deaths. And, of course, the recovery rate is much higher, 1,844,158, which is great. So if we scroll down the page a bit more, we've obviously got our table with all the different cases and what other countries, what point they're at with the coronavirus. So you can see the USA there leading the way, if you want to put it that way, with 1.5 million, 90,000 deaths and 340,000 recoveries. And the UK, I think when we last spoke about COVID-19, we was probably 10th in the table. We're now 4th with 243,000 cases. But how reliable this is, I'm not too sure, because a lot of people aren't being tested. People are just, staying at home. I know for a fact my brother-in-law had it. He had all the symptoms, so he self-isolated, but he didn't get tested. So he is another stat, if you like, but unofficial. So that's how we stand at the moment, coronavirus. So therefore, I think the question we've got is, so how are you guys feeling so far with the current pandemic, with the lockdown? How did you feel about the speech the Prime Minister gave the other day? I'll start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, I think it's never easy to make everyone happy. I don't think anyone's truly got the answers at the moment. If it was up to me, I'd probably keep lockdown a little bit longer. But at the same time, we need the world to go on, slowly. We need the economy to continue. And it's not going to happen if people aren't working, especially the property market. I know I'm biased because I'm an estate agent. But at the same time, I thought what I liked about it is he did give a clear roadmap. He said what we need to achieve, the 5 steps. He did also say that over the next few days he was going to sort of update, guidelines, which he did. Some things were a bit confusing, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, it's all about using your common sense and staying alert.
Yeah, there's good points there. How about you, Chris?
Well, I was the same as Ryan, really. I thought a lot, again, this isn't a political podcast, so forgive me if I get my facts wrong, people out there. But to me, I thought it was pretty clear. And I think that because I work in construction, so I understood when he said about construction workers going back, I knew that didn't mean people that work in an office to do with construction. I knew that meant people that work on building sites. And I also knew that meant people that are removing the claddings off of high-rise buildings, so things like the Grenfell disaster don't happen again, because they still need to work, because that still needs to happen. So, I knew what he meant, and I like the way that he gave out if you stick by it, if we follow the rules, this is what's going to happen by then, this is what's going to happen by then. And I think us as the British public just really needed answers of some sort. And yeah, I mirror what Ryan said, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. And what about you, Lewis?
Yeah, again, nothing too dissimilar to the other guys. I thought it was absolutely fine, nothing wrong with it. It was clear, I understood it. The thing is, people seem very eager to sort of just expect it, it to just all of a sudden overnight be over, and the world just goes back to normal. which is stupid. Like obviously
Exactly.
it's going to be a phase thing, whatever way you do it. There's not going to be a magic switch that's flicked and all of a sudden we're all back to normal. It's going to be a long, drawn out process, in stages, and each of the conditions have to be met for those stages to be implemented in the first place. So, I think it was quite good for people to sort of finally see, okay, right, there is a roadmap, there is a plan for this, but it's very, very much based on common sense and conditional stuff, rather than like people queuing for like 2 hours to get a KFC and stuff like that again. It's like it's still, the rules are still the same. We're still in the same situation. We've only decreased a little bit on that government scale, nothing too, so it could only take one slip up and we're back to where we were or worse. So, I think.
Sorry, mate. And plus, he said that he would be increasing the fine for anyone that's not following the guidelines. So in a way, it's kind of restricting it still, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so many people were saying, "Oh, it's it's all going to go back to normal now. Everyone's just going to fall apart and everything." It's like, but he said that he's going to increase the fine. So if you get caught, there's even more of a risk. So it's like, well, no.
It swings and roundabouts, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course.
It's still unsure.
Yeah. Myself personally, after the Prime Minister's speech, I went onto Facebook, as you do. I looked at the comments, and it was all varying opinions. There was people who were saying, why are you allowing lockdown to be eased? We should carry on as we are. And then there's people saying, no, lift lockdown, the economy's crashing, we need to get people back to work. Personally, to me, I do think the kind of lockdown should continue. Just to make sure we're just getting past that phase, aren't we? Because he wants to keep the R down, doesn't he, below 1. So we're doing so well. And he even said himself, if we get above the R, we'll put the brakes back on. But then why let it get to that? Why not just continue as we are? So, yeah, we're a band. We're not politicians. We're not politically knowledgeable. We'll look on BBC News. We'll get updates from the internet, as majority of the population do. But we want to chat about when we're going to start gigging again. I've heard that apparently pubs and venues will be opening or starting to open July time. This is what I've heard. I don't know if it's a fact. So when do you think we'll start gigging again, under the circumstances? I'll start with you, Lewis.
To be honest, probably either right at the end of this year or early next year. I don't think anything before that. And there's no point, especially like in crowded environments, we might get like some good results in obviously reduction of cases and things like that, where it starts improving. But like we said before, there's going to be no magic switch and all of a sudden you can pack out a pub.
Yeah.
So
Imagine
I think
if there was.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's not going to go away overnight. And you said it yourself 5 minutes ago. It's not going to go away itself. This is, I think, in for the long run. And the way businesses are going to run as well. Pubs are gonna probably not have as many people in their venues.
Yeah,
but then you got to weigh up, haven't you, with pulling pints to, is it worth them even being open just for that amount of people?
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
Well, it's like how hard was it to try and get a gig when this wasn't happening? Look at it like that. Having a band in a pub is going to be the least of their priority, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be like, okay, yeah, they're letting people back in pubs, but they're going to have to, they're not going to have the money to pay a band, are they? If they haven't been making any money pulling pints.
Yeah. So question to you then: when do you think we'll start gigging again, or when will venues start opening their doors to bands?
Venue, I think bands next year, maybe next spring. I think private functions will be different. Obviously, once restrictions are lifted, people will want to have private get-togethers again. They want to have parties. Weddings and stuff like that will probably be before pubs, I'd say. Probably not on the fact of a legal reason, just morely on the fact that pubs won't have the money to pay bands straight away.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, and Ryan?
Yeah, I think I sort of agree with the other boys, really. I think it's going to be a while before we see any pub gigs. I could be completely wrong. They might pull the trigger and so that we can do it. But personally, I don't think it's a wise move, to at least the end of the year, till
No.
the R retention is, below 0.5, as they say, or 0. That's what you want.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, they're easing lockdown, but it's not quite ready to go and have a jolly yet, is it? When people are drunk,
No.
close proximity, it's the worst environment. I know I love gigs. I want to be out there gigging again, but certainly not at the moment because it's just not safe. So I personally think it will be a minimum of say 6 months from now.
So the pandemic was obviously in the news from the start of the year. We was doing our gigs, and as we went on and on and on, it was probably in the height of the news when we done the gig in at the Anchor in Benfleet, and then there was lots of people there, wasn't there? A packed out pub, and then we went on to the Centurion, and again it was getting more escalated in the news. We still played, and there were still people in the pubs, but we didn't really. I don't think the panic got as much as it is now then, but it kind of is now, and so I can see why obviously the gigs stopped and things like that. But Chris, you briefly touched on private venues, private gigs like birthdays, weddings, and stuff. So do you guys think that they're gonna kick up, like start again? Because I mean, I've had a few people text me asking if we can be available for their birthdays and stuff, and it's down to you guys, and we have to make sure we're safe as well. So I'll start with you, Chris.
I've seen stuff on Essex cover bands community already with people asking for bands, private functions, like community groups. Rayleigh community, there's someone asking for a duo to do their son's 21st in October and things like this. We've got a private function in September that was rearranged from, I don't know what it was rearranged from, but which I'm sceptical whether that will happen, to be honest. But I do think it will happen before, and I think that's, like I said, because they won't have, pubs won't have the money to pay a band, but people more likely will, especially the ones that, like, for example, people that might for some people being on furlough has made them better off. So people will still have some money. So I think the private functions and things will definitely pick up before pubs do. Don't know when, but I like still with a minimum of 6 months. But then if restrictions are lifted in July, like they said that they might be, then some people will see that as right. I can have a party now, can't I? Won't they? Mm-hmm. They still won't be sensible. Yeah, it's up to the bands.
Of course. Lewis, you got any opinions or points to add to that?
Yeah, I still don't think it's a good idea because you've got no security. You're at the mercy of whoever's organising an event. So with the greatest of respect, there's no formal precautions in place. They might say, "Oh, you can play on a stage here, in this location, and no one can come within 2 meters or whatever." Yeah. But then that means are the guests going to stay 2 meters apart in a family gathering, or at a birthday party or something. For me, it's an absolute hard no.
Yeah, so
not until this is done, because the thing is, with the greatest respect to people, you can trust yourself or people that are close friends like we are. We know what we trust each other. We know where we've been, what we're doing, etc. And if we set hard rules, we'd abide by them. But you can't obviously factor in everyone else. With the greatest respect to them all. So it's nowhere near safe. Even like a supermarket, when you go there, and obviously there's like a formal procedure and who can go in, who can come out, how far you've got to stand, which side. But you can even see people not doing that sometimes. So even with kind of authoritative figures setting out specific health and safety guidelines in a big public place. Imagine on a private venue, there's going to be none of that, especially after a couple of pints in and stuff.
Exactly. So, it's someone's garden, wouldn't it, or something like that? People do what they want in their own homes. So
yeah. I ain't seen you in 6 months, and then it's going to be the hugging that's going to start.
Yeah. But when you're saying about the supermarkets there, Lewis, when I'm FaceTiming Steph while she's standing in the queue at Asda, I feel so sorry for her. Anyway, Ryan, have you got any points to add to that, or an opinion on?
Well, you're safe and sound in your cabin.
Any point? So, right, you got any points to add to that, or any opinion on private functions?
Yeah, I think I just agree with Lewis again. It would be ridiculous if they just suddenly go, "Yep, July." Some functions can be we're good to go, and all of a sudden they have a massive. Because let's face it, weddings, if they're going to continue, they're not really at the moment. You shouldn't be having a massive sort of gathering. Because everyone's going to be having drinks, everyone's going to be in close proximity, everyone's going to get sweaty and cough and all these bits and pieces. I mean, that's just when I get on the stage anyway. But,
What type of party is this, Ryan?
Oh, sorry. So are we still talking about weddings? No. But I think it's, public interest really not to for a while. And I think it'll take... My prediction is 6 months minimum, even for weddings. But yes, I do agree with Chris that if something was going to start, it would probably be the private functions, because you can police it a little bit better. If you're playing a pub,
Mm.
you don't know who's going to walk in, do you?
That's fair enough.
I wouldn't feel comfortable doing a gig now, even if it was lifted right now. I wouldn't. I'd be like, it'd be, the atmosphere would be wrong, wouldn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's not going to be people up jumping around having a good time. I mean, I think even when it's lifted and they say, "Oh, you can all go back to the pub," people are still going to be like, "Well, I don't know."
That's the thing, mate. There's now a stigma attached to social gatherings, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be with us for a very long time now. It's just going to be the way it is. People, when you're walking down the road today, Steph, myself, and Oscar went for our daily exercise. You know, went for a little walk.
Yeah.
And when you walk past people, they're giving you a wide berth on the road. People are stopping for you, and it's just the way things are now, aren't they?
It's like that. You've seen that meme? It was just like clips from, you know, like in Hot Fuzz when he walks into the town and all the town folk are looking at him.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly
it's
what
like
it is.
that
And
meme.
people, and it's all that's on the end of people like conversation now. We walked past 30 people 2 meters apart, and they were every conversation we heard was about coronavirus, what's going on, and two lads walked past. They were talking about, oh well, if you catch it and you get over it, it's a pathogen, so it's going to be, you know, you can just get it again in a different strain. I think it's true because it's a pathogen. Pathogens like flu. There's many different strains of it, so it is just still everywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
So another question I've got then is, when we do start gigging, 6 months, year and a half, when we do start gigging, do you think there will be any changes to them gigs then? Do you think that there will be social distancing still put in place there, or do you reckon it would be the band has to be completely away from the audience and there'll be a space? What do you guys think? Ryan, I'll start with you.
I think if we're still at that stage, if they turn around and give the green light for gigs, and we're still at the stage where you need social distancing, there shouldn't be a gig full stop.
No, yeah, exactly.
There might be some exceptions if it's a wedding and, like you say, it's limited numbers and social distancing applies, and there's no alcohol involved, so people can follow the rules. I know that sounds crazy. But realistically, until they say we're safe, a social environment like that should, and sorry to say this, but even pubs in general should not take place yet until it gets given the green light.
That's fair enough, yeah. And Lewis, how about you, mate? What do you think?
I was going to say the same as Ryan. Basically, it's all or nothing. There won't be any difference when it's all over because there won't be any gigs before all this is done and dusted, I don't think. And then you know, when it is done, then it will just be back to normal because the sort of virus will be gone, or so to speak, unless it comes back in a different strain. But that's another topic and another podcast, isn't it? Yeah. If it works the same way.
And what about you, Chris? If we start gigging again, what do you reckon to be changes to our gigs?
I can't see how you could open a pub up and say, okay, yeah, you're only allowed 10 people in the pub at a time and you're not allowed more than half a pint because if you get too drunk, you start hugging each other and you have to stay 2 meters apart while you watch the band. Okay. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I just don't see how... It's such a bloody shame, isn't it? Because we had some cracking gigs coming up. Oh, we really did.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like, I finally felt like I'm in a band that we got some gigs, really good gigs here. You know, for so many years I've been sort of challenged by other band members about trying to get gigs and things, and certain people don't want to do this, certain people don't. But you know, finding a group of guys that just want to go out and gig and get really good gigs and push for those good gigs as well. And it's like, and a global pandemic.
That's what's the kick in the teeth, because we had roughly 2 gigs a month booked, some weddings, some parties, some pubs, and you know, we was probably going to be getting the money from them gigs as a bit of spending money for, you know, holidays, trips away. I in fact, me and Steph, we was meant to go Centre Parks, and our trip's been cancelled, and the gig money was going to be for spending money, just in Centre Parks and stuff. But it's really, really messed up this year. I think this year is definitely a write-off, personally, and same for gigs as well. Changes the gigs. I think social distancing is going to be, although it probably won't be applied by the government for us to do it, it's going to be just attached to society now. I think it's just going to be how people are going to be, how they're going to meet. It's just going to apply because people are just going to have, again, going back to that stigma is just going to be attached to it, isn't it? You know, this virus is so contagious and we don't know if it's going to be gone, and it's never going to be gone. I think it's going to be with us for a very long time.
I've just got something to say on that, Sam. I do agree with you and Chris. We were getting a lot of momentum for 2020. regular gigs on average to a month, sometimes a little bit more. And you and I, Chris, I mean, last year we was in a band Strikeout and we were gigging, but we never really reached our potential. The Apes have done some fantastic gigs over the years, but we haven't really done a lot for a few years. So this is the first time that we're like really positive again. But take all the negatives aside, and don't get me wrong, there's more negatives than positives in the grand scheme of things. People losing their lives, jobs going down, etc. But the positive from this, from a musical point of view, and we talked in great length, didn't we, on our other podcast about lockdown, is YouTube key for success? This has been a perfect time for people to, do online streaming and put out videos on YouTube. And let's face it, this is the first time in a while that we've been really regular on YouTube. We've been consistent. And don't get me wrong, gigs aside, we planned this, didn't we? We were going to do one podcast a month. We were going to try and do one video a month. I think we were always going to do this, but this really gave us a kick up the arse to just get shit done. So, I mean, what do you think, guys?
Yeah.
From that perspective, this needed to happen, didn't it? Well, in terms of online videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so for us to get known on YouTube, there needs to be a global pandemic.
Did you need a pandemic?
Yeah.
YouTube video.
That is a video title there.
It's a good point, Ryan. It's a very good point. I think for us, like, it's been, again, choosing words carefully, taking like the positives, but it's inspired us to push like a really different side of what we do in terms of like being creative online, rather than like in a sort of physical capacity in a rehearsal room. So like for you guys, like, Sam's always had a setup, which has been really cool. I've always had some sort of home setup. But for you guys, you've never done any home recording or had a setup. So all of a sudden you've been forced out of your comfort zone, investing in your own equipment and things like that to be able to be creative on the spot, And so you've now had to learn something that you didn't know before, and you can now use it for your own things. So, whether you want to write a song or you want to capture ideas, you've got, facilities there that you didn't have before. So, and for us, I think it's shown us how easy it can be to do things. Like obviously you've got to be able to work well collectively in the first place. Like we do work really well remotely, separate. Like when we make a song, Sam just will put the drum track together, with some sort of reference points, and then we all just learn our parts and play it over the top. So it proves you can be really creative really quickly, quite easily. So obviously you need a bit of chemistry to make that work comfortably. But I've really enjoyed the fact that it's afforded us the opportunity to be creative in this way, that we wouldn't necessarily have done before, because when we've got a lot of gigs, like you said, Ryan, up to 2 or 3 a month sometimes, and obviously you're rehearsing a set, so it's got to be good. You don't have the flexibility and the time to sit there to, make online YouTube videos and stuff like that. It's a lot harder to find the time to do it, and amongst your job, your home life, you're traveling to and from work, all those kind of things. So it's been quite nice to prove to ourselves that actually, look what you can achieve if you're forced to do it.
Absolutely. And I've got a question for you guys as well. I mean, let's be real, and I know I'm going off topic a little bit, but let's just be honest. If we're doing gigs on a regular basis, and other bands out there, if there's bands that are constantly gigging, they've got a full-time job, how do you maintain a YouTube presence? How do you still do videos? Because let's face it, it's not always going to be possible, but I think it is. It's just working smarter. I mean, Sam, what would be your advice? People that want to do podcasts, people that still want to do YouTube videos, when we do eventually gig again, how do you sort of stay consistent? Because that's certainly opened my eyes to think, well, I'm loving what we've been doing. We've got to keep this up.
It's just capturing everything in the moment. So your gigs, set up a camera rig, each set up a camera, drum angle, guitar angle, vocal angle. Then you've got footage, you've got archive footage then, and then record your set where you can. Luckily, we've got an 18-channel mixer, so we can record our gigs in full multi-track audio, and then it can be mixed properly like a proper live gig. And then, if I'm honest with you, when it comes to doing podcasts like us and doing your cover videos, it is just about putting the time in. So, for instance, I would put my little boy to bed at 8 o'clock, and then from 8 until about 11, I would do band stuff. If I'm not training for work and things like that, I'll just do band stuff. And it is just finding the time to do it, really, and the commitment. But it is mainly just try and gather as much footage as you can while you're gigging of your songs, and do your own little videos as well, like we do anyway. Ryan will do a video on the latest news, music industry. Ryan done one about Paul McCartney's response to Mick Jagger. Was it Mick Jagger? Yeah, it was Mick Jagger, wasn't it? Like that, and then we're doing our solo Sundays. Everyone's got different amounts of time in their day. So for instance, like Chris, I know you done a few solo Sundays, which is the new videos that we're doing now. So everyone's just got different time, and you just got to work with each other. And I think that's where the chemistry, you need to have a good chemistry and be able to talk to each other and make sure you keep talking. Don't go quiet for a few days, even if you've got like a strop or something. If you
Getting burned.
I didn't have it. I'll do that bit again.
I thought no, he's not. No, he's oh, he is doing it.
No, so even if it goes quiet for a bit, just check in and be like, "How's it going, guys? What's going on? We got this in the pipeline. Let's just keep going." And then it might push someone to go, "Oh yeah, I need to record my guitar bit," and then they'll put the time aside to do it. It is all about communication, mate. Just stay in contact, and it works two ways.
100%.
I think you was going to say something, right? You look like you was trying to say something.
No, I was just going to say.
It was on the tip of his tongue.
he's trying to choke on something.
Yeah. So communication. That's what I think it is all about.
Definitely. I just want to say as well, completely agree with you, Sam, and I think it's about working smartly. You can work hard, but you got to work smart as well. So I always say, if you're going to do podcasts or if you're going to do music videos, try and record more than one and then hold stuff back. Because if you are busy, if you've got a full-time job, you can't really afford for YouTube. If you want to grow your fan base, you can't really afford for it to have one video every 6 months like we used to do, Lou. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to have, even if it's one video a month, you just need to be consistent. And the best way to get around that is just, when you've got time, record more than one and hold them back.
What do you think, Chris? Start with you.
Well, I mirror what you said about recording at gigs, because a lot of the hard work's already done then, isn't it, really? I mean, I know you got to mix and master it all after, and maybe if you want to do a video, you can put it all to the video, which can editing that can be a little bit difficult, as I discovered with one of the solos. It was out of time, but it doesn't take. It's not hard to do, is it? Just video your gigs. I mean, okay, yeah, maybe doing it on a phone is a bit difficult, because you've got to try and, if you haven't got like a tripod or anything, you kind of got to balance it on a monitor or something, which, let's face it, is going to go awfully wrong. But communicate, make use of what you've already got, and have a bit of a plan in place. Don't just sort of randomly think, oh, I want to do this, and then just push it forward. And just have a little bit of a what do you want to achieve out of something, and push it in, and like be smart about it as well, like you said, Ryan. That's my advice.
Yeah. How about you, Lou?
Yeah, like, I think one of the good things that you guys have all said is, like, if you've got the facility to capture things, you might as well do it now, because obviously Ryan and I have discussed this over the years that we've been in the band. We've got so much material for this band in different incarnations over the years, but a lot of it is just sort of sitting on a hard drive. And so it's kind of, that's what's been really refreshing in terms of what we've been able to put out recently, because we've got a nice vault of archived footage that, needed to see the light of day, but it hadn't before, but it might not have done if we had not found ourselves in this situation,
Yeah.
So like for example, the video that we just put out, the T-Rex cover of Get It On, I mean, we did that. How many years ago was that? Was that 2 years? A year?
2 years ago, yeah.
2, wasn't it?
Yeah, so
it was
2 years ago.
It was close to the 10-year show as well, which we used some of the footage from that night as well, didn't we? As well as the studio footage in Colchester.
Yeah. Excuse me, sorry. So, case in point, to illustrate what Ryan's saying, it's like, if we hadn't, and well, all of you actually, if we hadn't captured that footage from that day in that studio, we never would have had that bit of material just to put out there now. So it's kind of, if you've got the abilities to capture things, it's nice for yourself, but it's nice to be able to share it with people, So I just echo all of your sentiments. Really, it's if you've got the facility to record, even if it's terrible little demos, things that aren't great, the more you've got, the more stuff that you've got there archived and available can only benefit you in the long run.
What I tend to do is, personally, after we've had a gig, I will go on YouTube and Facebook and type in keywords and see if anyone's publicly put their own video of us up on Facebook or YouTube. So there was when we played at the Centurion in Colchester, there was a couple who recorded us playing 500 Miles.
Oh, really?
That was their wedding song, funnily enough. So they
Bloody
recorded it, good quality, so from an audience perspective as well. And I found it, and that's what I look for. So, and then years ago when we played at the Gun, when we got rained off stage and we was playing under the canopy.
Oh, yeah.
Someone posted a video of us playing, I think it was Adore You Live and American Idiot on their phone. So I look at other people, I type in keywords like Peppermint Apes Live or Live at Centurion, just words where it brings something up, just to see if we can find. Then if it's good enough quality, put it in the archive, and then we've got something to refer back to if we need to use it in a video in the future or something.
Definitely.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? With like the only downside to being creative here with online videos, we haven't really got much to work with from a video perspective, because you're only really at home, aren't you? So you've only got like a couple of rooms in your house, maybe your garden that you can use. There's not really too much you can use in the way of being creative or filming a video like you usually would be able to. Choose a location, go somewhere, film it, utilize that side of things. So obviously that's another challenge, but yeah, it's
A question I've got for you is going back to music now. Itself is rehearsals. Then, when do we think studios will start opening again? Because that's the main point of a gig is we rehearse to get a tight sound and be the best we can be. What do you think about the studios themselves opening up? Do you reckon they're going to be one of the last things to open up? I'll start with you, Chris.
I think they're going to open when leisurely things, like they said in July, wasn't it? I think they'll open the same time as then. I've already seen on Facebook, Mushroom Rehearsal Studios have said that they're going to review opening in July. Control Rooms have reviewed it, I think. Are going to review it in July. But then, will they be as busy if bands haven't got gigs? So they're going to want to rehearse. But for me, I'd want to rehearse because I enjoy rehearsing. I don't necessarily think, for me, I've always enjoyed rehearsing just because I like playing in a band, So for me, there's never been sort of, okay, yeah, great. If we've got a gig at the end of the month, then yeah, we'll rehearse for it. We've got work till time. But if we haven't got a gig until, we don't even know when, still rehearse because it's fun, isn't it? And when rehearsal rooms do reopen again, I think they should do something about the fact that they have communal microphones there and you can borrow equipment and stuff like that. I mean, I know some rehearsal rooms do make money out of you can, hire an amp or something. An amp's slightly different, but they give you like a box of old Bay Ringer mics that have been passed around every band in Essex, and you just think, who's coughed into that?
It's cross-contamination control, isn't it? It's basic. Yeah. I guess that's what it is, isn't it?
Who's spat into that? And you sniff it, and it just smells of breath. And you just think, cheesy breath, and you just think, it stinks of Corona, that, doesn't it? But
I'm having that, Mike. Keep that 2 meters away.
It's so true though, isn't it? When I've had a vocal mic before, you go to take a breath and you, oh God, who's the last person? What do they eat?
What's that?
Who spat into that fucking burger breath? Yeah,
that's fair enough. I mean, personally, myself, if we haven't got a gig, I see this, and Ryan, I don't know if you'd agree with me here. I see this as a bit of a business. So we've already outlaid money on our equipment and stuff like that. And if we're paying for rehearsals, we're kind of losing money rather than gaining money, aren't we? Because then the gigs would hopefully pay for rehearsals, pay for the equipment. So that's why. I personally would say if there wasn't a gig up, okay, one every now and then would be okay. But if it was a recurring rehearsal, I think we'd start losing money and then going into the red. Really, what do you think, Rye?
Yes and no.
I mean, like, what do you think about rehearsals themselves? Like, when rehearsals will start again, and what do you think about rehearsing?
Yeah, so I think regards to rehearsing, I think studios will open up before pubs will, before gigs come back. People will be able to rehearse, I reckon. Personally, I'm not going to feel comfortable going to Mushroom Studios or Baz Studios or any studios until we all feel a bit more comfortable. They could turn around and say, tomorrow they could turn around and say, right, keep your social distancing, go to rehearsal studios. I'm not going to do it straight away, but I do miss rehearsals, and I do agree with you, Sam. I think it is a business, and you don't, if you're not gigging, you don't want to be spending too much money on rehearsals. But at the same time, it's a balance. I think it's return of investment. I think when you're rehearsing, you're getting tighter. So when you're gigging, more people are going to book you. So you make more money on the back of that because people will see you and go, "Oh, I want to book that band." But you want to be polished, and at the same time, like Chris said, it's also fun to be together and make music. But it is a balance. I do agree. It's if you've got no gigs, then you don't want to be constantly spending money. But there's other ways of rehearsing now for people, even if they don't lift studios. There's virtual rehearsals that we're going to try soon as well. Which I think is important. Everyone can rehearse individually. I miss rehearsals. I want to get back to it, but I'm not going to. If they turn around tomorrow and say people can rehearse, I'm certainly not going to rush to it. I mean, I don't know what you guys think.
I'll be the same as you.
Lewis, what do you think, Lewis?
Yeah, it's one of those ones that, like you say, you've got to. I agree with you now. There's no point in outlaying a lot of money when you can't return your investment. However, when we get an idea of when it's going to start sort of returning to normal, then it's worth investing because, like you say, when you are looking at a business, let's look at it as a business and we talk about a product like Apple, or, if they're issuing a product, it's got to be good quality. It's got to go through quality control. It's got to be built well. It's got to be reliable, and it's no different to us. If you want to make a good living, being good at what you do, you have to invest the time, the hours to make sure that we're good, that people see us and they think, what a great band. I'd love to have them at this. I'd love to see them here again. They tell the bar staff or the management, or they try and book us for a private function. So, you have to rehearse to be good enough to be good at what you do. So I totally get where all of you are coming from, and Sam, I agree with you in that it's a ridiculous prospect to even do. Even if they turned around in July and said, "Do you want to rehearse?" I'd still say there's not really much point. If we knew by, let's say, January, February next year, pubs were able to were open by this point and they were booking bands and social distancing was gone, then you'd go, okay, maybe the end of the year, let's start booking in some regular rehearsals to get everything in shape for the next year, for what you're working towards. But yeah, there's no point in investing a lot of money into, and you can't get any sort of return on it.
Yes, you got to be intelligent about it. I mean, you can't just think, right, okay, rehearsals lift, let's rehearse 3 times a week until whenever. But I mean, you got to be a bit proactive instead of reactive with it, I think, because you got to think about when all this is lifted and pubs start having bands again. Every band's going to be in exactly the same situation, and we've got to stick out from the crowd even more. Yeah,
you've got to stay tight, haven't you?
Yeah. But it's even things like our podcast. We're doing them via Skype at the moment. When will you guys feel comfortable to come back round to mine or round to Lewis's or to Ryan's or to whoever's to do the podcast properly? When will that be lifted? I wonder if we could rehearse in a field somewhere, 2 meters apart,
and a big generator.
Well, that's it. There's no. Well, we're doing exercise, aren't we? We're working out.
We're shredding.
Do some squats at the same time.
Government mandated shred.
I mean, do a gig over the recreation ground.
I mean, one thing I would definitely be interested in doing is exploring the whole virtual rehearsals, so we're all in sync. Because obviously you can't just play on Skype, can you? Because everyone will be out of time because of the Wi-Fi lags, etc. So I think for bands that want to rehearse, need to get tight, but obviously can't, I would say explore the virtual avenues, which I think we should do. But let's be honest, boys. I think even if they turn around and everything goes back to normal, but we didn't have any gigs for a while, and even if there wasn't much money involved, I don't know about you guys, but I just love making music with you. So I think I'd still be rehearsing, but I do agree you have to be realistic.
Got to be sensible,
what you're spending. But it's a balance, isn't it?
And plus, if we're going to go down the road of doing higher paid gigs and stuff in the future, then that return investment would come back a lot quicker than if we was doing just pub gigs.
Yeah, of course, but we've got to get to that point, haven't we? That's the thing.
Yeah.
But then, like we've all said, it's a balance. Yeah. We have to work out how much we need to rehearse compared to how much we're going to be gigging, how much we're going to be outlaying. I've got a spreadsheet of all our incomings and outgoings, each. It's on my computer somewhere. Obviously, I've not looked at it for 4 months because not needed to, but it's got all our mixer costs, our PA costs, subwoofer costs, all our individual payments and things like that, and how much we're returning. And I just don't want to see that going, you want to use the R. I don't want to see him going above the R. We use the R as
The
return
R for
investment.
return, yeah.
We use it in that sense, if you like. So I don't want to see us losing money. I want to see us making money, because that money will help us towards, our little holidays, our breaks, our, little treats for our partners, or whatever you like, whatever floats your boat, really. So are you guys looking forward to gigging again, though? I know we talked about rehearsals, but when they say, right, green light, are you guys looking forward to it, or do you reckon you'll be like, I'm still a bit nervous, but, what do you think? I'll start with you, Rye.
Well, obviously, I tend to book most of the gigs anyway, but it's one of those things. It's all about networking. You've still got to speak to people. You've still got to speak to pubs, because let's face it, they're in a similar boat, and you don't want people to forget about you. So you've still got to make the calls, etc. But at the same time, everyone just needs to hold back a little bit just till we get the green light. But I think most venues, they book bands a year in advance from September, October, November. It's usually within that sort of 3-month period. So around that time, we'll still be contacting pubs for next year, and I'm sure there's a lot of pubs that contact us as well, and people contact. We have a lot of people that inquire for weddings, etc. So we'll certainly deal with the inquiries for next year, and you've got to think ahead. So absolutely, we'll definitely look into next year, and if they have to be paused or cancelled, then so be it. But when the time's right, I can't wait to gig. I really do miss it. Really do miss it. But like I said, not going to rush to do it until it's safe to do so. But I've really enjoyed, doing the lockdown projects, doing our own YouTube videos, doing these podcasts, which we will continue to do. It's kind of been. I know it's been very sad, the whole lockdown thing. It's also been the making of the band again, hasn't it? That we've been doing this. It's certainly been challenging, like you said, Lou. Everyone recording on your own and getting your camera angles right, and it's tricky, because I work better.
Well, you're being your own producer, aren't you? You're being your own producer, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I personally work better having someone with me. Hopefully it's everybody, but even if it's just you...
So you can show off too.
Yeah, but even if it's just you, Sam, or my dad that's producing, or anyone, just... You want someone to say, oh, that vocal take was lousy, or that bass can be done again, or Ryan, that's really, really good. Because you're kind of just trying to predict yourself, and then, But having said that, it's been a good learning curve, and I've loved it. Can't wait to gig, and but when it's safe to do so.
Yeah. I was the same as you about the recording thing, because I was like, being your own sort of producer with it, I'll record something, and the only person I can ask is obviously my other half, and she's like, "Yeah, it's great. You sound great on everything I do." And you're just like,
well, usually that's a good opinion, because like my dad, for instance, when he used to listen to my mixes and stuff, he would actually point out some really good bits. Oh, was that supposed to sound like that? Oh, is that guitar supposed to twang like that or something? I'd be like, oh no, I need to. So usually the untrained ear is usually a good opinion.
Yeah,
but dads are critical, aren't they? Dads love it.
Yeah. So Chris, are you looking forward to getting back gigging them?
No, I hate gigging, mate. Hate being in a band.
Yeah. Lewis?
Yeah. I'm out. Chris has left the chat.
Are you looking forward to it, Chris, when we get the green light?
Yes, of course. I can't wait. Can't wait to get back on the stage in my spandex. But no, honestly, I really am. Yeah. Once everything's back to normal, and it's just gonna be great, isn't it? I think everyone's going to be so happy as well once they feel like they confidently can go back to being a pub. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere once it's all back. It really is. Or, it might go that way, but,
Yeah. How about you, Lewis? Looking forward to it?
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely buzzing. You imagine, it's just uncaged animals getting smashed.
Yeah.
They're going to want a bit of live music, and we're going to be there to provide it to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Providers.
We need to define normality. That's the thing after this. That's all it is. Once normality's been set, I think we're all looking forward to it. So, just my final question then. The topic of the podcast, will gigging ever be the same? So in a quick, brief sentence, Ryan, I'll start with you. Will it ever be the same?
Eventually. I think in the... short term, maybe not so much, but then you don't know. I mean, for smaller bands or pub bands, people on the circuit, depends on what the crowd want to do. There might be a lot of people that are holding back. They're thinking, I just can't wait to go back to the pub, can't wait to see live music again. And the minute we've got the green light, it could be floods of people, or it could be empty gigs because people are sceptical as well. I really don't know what to predict. It could be one or the other. I think big events like the O2 and festivals, I reckon that's going to take a while before they have the green light. But eventually, when it's ready to go, I think it will be the same again because I personally don't think, like I said earlier, gigs should go ahead if there's going to be social distancing or anything like that. I think it's best to say all or nothing.
Fair enough. Chris, do you think gigging will ever be the same again?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it'll take a while to get there, but once it does, it might even be better. People might actually have a bit more of an appreciation for it. Maybe actually it might improve live music in pubs and things. People might think, oh, fuck me, there's a live band here. You don't get to see that much. We haven't seen that in ages. People might think to themselves on a Saturday night, oh, I really want to go see a live band because they haven't done it in a long time. So I think it's going to take a long time to get back. It's not going to be an instant flick of the switch, but that would be absolutely mental, wouldn't it? Actually, it's just all of a sudden, it's just like everyone's gone back. But yeah, I think...
I really like the point that you said there, Chris, that people might appreciate it more because they've been secluded and isolated for so long. Social gatherings might be just that little bit more special, Yeah.
So,
Lewis, do you think gigging will ever be the same?
Sam, I'll give you a big categorical fat yes. Yeah. Once all this is done, it'll just go back to normal like it always was, which is great. That's what you want, Once all the social distancing is gone, the virus is hopefully eradicated, back to normal. Everyone will be back in the pubs and we'll be back in there too.
Excellent. And then hopefully we won't encounter a second spike.
Exactly. And that's another topic.
That's another topic completely. That's another 3 hours to talk about if there be a second spike. That's fair enough.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, absolutely. I was just going to slow us down even more. So people just got to be, as the government said, stay alert and control the virus.
Thanks for watching this podcast. Please subscribe to our channel, hit notifications, leave us a comment, and we'll see you soon.